Okay, for this assignment, you are going to upload the photos of your artist proof prints. All right, the artist proofs, the AP. Remember that yesterday we were labeling all the prints artist proof and not numbering. So order them from best to what you think is the worst print. All right, so the first one will be the one that you think turned out best, and then the last one is the one that you think did not turn out at all. And so when you, in the comments box, after you post, you can either post them each individual or you can set them out like this in the order, whatever order you think is best to worst. And then in the comments, in the private comments on the assignment, private comments, not the class comments, but on the private comments, if you will, just say, why do you think the first one was the best, or the one that you selected as the best one? Was it clear, all the lines were clear, the ink was evenly placed over the plate, etc. And then on the one that you think turned out or didn't turn out at all, what do you think went wrong? Maybe there was too much ink, definitely too much ink on this one. So go back, look at your three artist proofs, and this is where, so for this person, they're doing the cow skull, which is a very, very popular theme this year. You'll see here in the lines, like around the nose here, is sort of the lines that are in the skull. So in this print that he did, you can see that there wasn't quite enough ink right here, although that's kind of a nice effect when you get those darker and lighter areas. It's just that it won't be consistent. And then it looks like they then went and put a lot of ink on, and then look at what happened. It filled in all the lines. And then on the next one, they've got the ink more even coat of ink on the plate, but it's still filling in these areas here around the nostrils. So with this person, I would recommend to go back in on your plate and use one of the gouges and actually make those lines thicker. All right, so use like a number 3 and make the lines inside thicker, and then you'll get more of a consistency in your prints as we go on to the numbered editions. But this one turned out really good. Here's another one from 5th period of this gorilla face. And you can see in this one, they used a little bit too much ink. We see the ink filling in these negative spaces here. Same thing here, they're going a little bit heavy with the ink on the plate. And then with this one, it's not too much ink, but maybe this could have been their first one, where you see the plate is still accepting the ink here. That's why we have these patches here. So now that you've already inked your plate and let it dry, it should be able to accept the ink at a more even tones. But again, if this person were to go in, they might want to widen those lines in between these forehead lines here, just to make sure that they don't get the ink pooling up in there when they're making their edition prints. All right, but this also turned out a really good balance of positive, negative space there. Here's another one with the T-Rex. And notice they made their words backwards, so it came out correctly when they printed it, which is kind of a tricky thing to do. This was, I believe, this looks like their first print here. You can see, I can tell because it looks like the plate is still accepting the ink. That's why you get those. It still has that sort of powdery coating. It takes a little while to get that off of there. And then the second one, wow, that turned out really good. We got a lot of depth. We can see all the lines here, just a little bit there but each one's going to turn out just slightly different. Here's another one that print pulled pretty good. The only thing is, make sure when you're pressing down on the plate and rubbing it on the plate that you don't also press onto the table, because a lot of times there'll be wet ink on the table, and that's where you'll get things like that. But we can always cut this out. We can always cut this out and then adhere it onto a clean piece of paper as well. All right, so that's a really good one. Let's look at one more. This one, I just really like the texture here. There's something very forest about it, where they left all these positive spaces here to give it texture. It almost looks like trees or grass or weeds around these flowers, and it just gives the whole piece really a unifying vision here of this, just leaving those positive spaces here, giving it that texture. So I believe this was the first. We see it's a little bit light there in the middle. The same here. It's just a matter of getting that ink there coated. But by the third one, look at that. That's a pretty good even coat there and a pretty good print. So I think these are going to turn out really good as an addition. So again, for this assignment, the first thing you need to do is go in, take pictures. You can either take pictures individually, or like I was saying, you can set them out, which ones you think are first, second, and third, and then take one photo, do it that way. But I need for you to write in the private comments, number one, your thoughts on your first one, your thoughts on the second one, and then thoughts on the third one and any changes you would make. So again, this is the time to, if you're looking at your prints and you see, oh, the ink kept filling in certain areas, this is the time to go ahead and get a gouge once again. And with this one, I noticed on this one that this detail the ink kept filling in. So I'm gonna go back in and just carve that detail back into there to make sure that I see that once I start doing the addition prints. I noticed the lines on this really weren't deep enough, and so the ink kept filling it in. So again, any changes that you're gonna make on your plate, you need to do that now that you see your artist proofs. Any changes before we start making the addition. Also, I noticed on my skate here, there was this negative space that I meant for that to be there, so I'm gonna go ahead and carve that in. Right, so you can get a gouge and go ahead and make any changes to the plate. Once you do that and your plate is now ready to go and ready to make additions, then watch the next video on making addition prints.